Pistols, revolvers, and even more pistols. That's what today's video is all about. The sidearms in Battlefield 6, which ones you should play and which ones you shouldn't. And by the end of this video you'll definitely know for sure what to play, because in my opinion the decision is actually pretty easy. Let's start to build up some tension with the sidearms you should absolutely never use. And at the very top of the list of weapons you should stay away from is definitely the ES 5.7. I played only with pistols for the background gameplay, of course, to try and get kills. Let's just say it was harder with some weapons than others. With this ES 5.7, it's nearly impossible to get a kill. The only place where it might work a little bit is as a secondary for snipers, meaning you only need to do like 20 damage for a follow-up shot because you already hit for 80 in close quarters. You know the deal, you shoot with a sniper, but the enemy is already so close that you quickly swap weapons. That might be the only way to get a kill with this gun. It's really difficult, and the weapon is terrible. It does about 14 damage per shot, over 10 meters, under 10 it's 20. But yeah, 10 meters go by fast and you should never use this gun. Even though it has a big mag and a fast fire rate, it's not. At least that's what my tests show. So we can cross out the ES immediately. Really not good, even though it has almost no recoil, but that doesn't help you because you have to land like 15 shots just to get one kill. So yeah, I think that gun is horrific. The next two kind of joined the ES in that club. The second worst, in my opinion, is one that wasn't even there from the start, but was added later, the GGH-22. A bit slower fire rate, supposedly a bit more damage, but still borderline useless, as I like to say. So stay away from this weapon, you don't need it, it's horrific also. We'll look at attachments in a bit. What you could play is up to you, of course, but I'll tell you which attachments I prefer and why, because you use sidearms in very specific situations, but more on that later. Now we come to the third worst weapon, and that's a P18. Here, my theory might not totally hold up. It actually has a slightly higher fire rate than the GGH-22 and also has plenty of ammo in the mag. Yeah, you can shoot a lot, maybe for those who like it as a follow-up for a sniper, because once you hit that sniper shot, assuming you actually hit it, you don't have to hit much more to get a kill. These fast-firing weapons might make sense there, because you're putting a lot of lead in the air very quickly, so the chance is higher that you'll land those 20 to 30 damage points you still need after that sniper hit. Then it might be possible to get the kill. That's where I see these weapons, but to be honest, you can't do much more than that. Now we're actually reached the podium spots, because there are only 6 sidearms in Battlefield 6 so far. Still no full auto. Dice, please. I'm definitely still waiting for something nice for the sniper, like a Glock or something. Well, it'll surely come eventually. We still have some seasons ahead of us, I hope, in Battlefield 6. Number 3 is the M45A1, which is probably in almost every game. It's like this cold looking thing, right? It has a slower fire rate than the other pistols we had so far, but it definitely does more damage. Per shot up to 10 meters, it's 33.4. After that, most pistols have a really hard drop-off. Well, actually, all sidearms in Battlefield 6 drop off hard after 10 meters. With this gun, it's still at least 25 after 10 meters. Like I said, with the ES 5.7, for example, it goes straight to 14 and you need infinite shots to take someone down. The M45A1 has a slower fire rate at 327 rounds per minute, definitely on the slower side with the pistols. It has a bit of recoil you have to control, but it's definitely manageable. And this would be the first weapon where I'd say, yeah, if it absolutely has to be a pistol, I'd recommend this one. It has a small magazine though, you have to keep that in mind. You can expand that later on, though leveling pistols is really tough, because you don't get that many kills with them, of course. That's why attachments and mastery are a whole different story. Let's not even talk about that. Plus, for sidearms you only have 60 attachment points available, not 100 like with primary weapons. But the 45A1 is definitely a solid third place. Now for the top 2. Only revolvers are left for those who made it this far and paid attention. We have the M44 revolver and the M357. The M44 was there from the start of this game. The M357 was added later, or you could unlock it via challenges. The M44 Revolver is the only sidearm I would actually say it's pretty much a primary weapon, not just for follow-up shots or something like that. It's basically a hand cannon. With this weapon, getting kills only with the weapon itself, but not as a sidearm, is actually the easiest of all of the sidearms. And in that regard, it would definitely be my first choice. This thing just puts out massive damage and is actually still usable at a bit of distance. Up to 10 meters, it's 66.7 damage. After that, up to 20, I think it's around 60 damage. Everything beyond that is 25. And at 70 meters, it drops to 20. But you notice that is definitely way more damage than the other weapons do so far. So as a standalone weapon, I prefer this one, the M44 Revolver, because it's just really strong and hits hard. But you have to be prepared for some nasty recoil. And it definitely doesn't have much ammo and it takes a long time to reload. So it's impractical, but very strong, I would say. Everyone has to decide for themselves if they'd rather have a pistol that shoots a bit faster or a revolver that puts out massive damage. My favorite when it comes to actual sidearms, meaning as a secondary weapon, not as primary, is definitely the M357 Trade. That little suffix belongs there. We got it in the first season, as I said, and this revolver is, in my opinion, by far the best sidearm in the whole game. For a revolver, we have a relatively high fire rate at 225 rounds per minute. Just for comparison, the M44 has 163. So you can actually play this quite spammy, especially when panic hits and you need to get a lot of lead in the air quickly, like I mentioned before. It works pretty well for that. The recoil is a bit juicier, but definitely manageable. Plus, it has 2 more rounds in the cylinder than the M44. And once you level it up a bit, you can unlock a fast reload attachment, which obviously makes the reload much faster. And it's worth it. Up to 10 meters, we're at 50 damage, so that's a 2-shot kill just like the M44. After that, the damage drops off a bit more, I have to say, and faster than with the M44. At 30 meters, it hits 20 damage, so we need 5 shots out of the 8 shots to kill. But like I said, that's why there's a distinction between an actual sidearm and a primary weapon. Let's say we're in a fight with an assault rifle or a sniper. That's how I judge sidearms most, because I personally use them most for follow-up shots, or if the assault rifle is empty. There's a high chance you already done some damage, in most cases at least. And then this revolver comes into play. Pull it out fast, spam your 8 shots towards the enemy, and something is bound to hit and do some damage. That's why the balance of this revolver is perfect for me. Between the damage it does, because you want the enemy dead fast when you hit, since they probably still have their primary ready, and the fire rate. So like I said, I think this revolver is the best compromise between firing fast and high damage, if you know what I mean. Long story short, M357 takes the #1 spot for me. Definitely write in the comments what's your favorite sidearm in Battlefield 6. But now, as I promised at the start of the video, let's take a look at some attachments. I'll start with my favorite, the M357, because I have it at level 19, so, well, I've got the most kills with it. Let's see what we can do here. With revolvers, it's a bit different. We'll look at some pistols briefly in a second. You see, for example, on the barrel, we can't change anything here. But then we come to the most important part for me on the sidearm, the laser, or rather the improved hipfire that comes with it. This is extremely important for pistols, if you ask me. You want to start shooting fast, you want to be mobile to avoid damage, and if the other guy still has its primary and you're flailing around with your secondary. That's why I would always go for the best laser you have available. Doesn't matter which one it is at that moment, as long as you have high hipfire accuracy. You're only going to be like 10 to 15 or 20 meters away max when you pull out your sidearm anyway. At least that's how it is for me in most cases. And then you can stay spammy and remain relatively mobile because you're firing from the hip. That way you can still avoid damage well. So I would go full hipfire. Sure, you can hit shots the other way too, but you're just not as mobile. And let's be honest, at those distances, you won't be aiming downside with a sidearm in most cases, and definitely not at this range. Even there, we have a 3-shot kill if a few headshots are mixed in. Let's go back to the menu briefly, because there's one more thing. There's also a laser light combo. I think that's unique for the pistols or sidearms. Costs a bit more, 20 points, which I could afford in this build here. The advantage is, in addition to the laser, the red one here, you have a light, which is definitely an advantage because we know lights in Battlefield 6 can be quite annoying. So you can blind people a bit, and as I said, sidearms are about damage avoidance, so that's a good alternative. If you have the points or have it unlocked, it's worth considering. Mastery 26, in this case, you get even a better one. It gives you 77 hipfire, which is even more than you'd get with just the green laser. You're more visible with the light, of course, but the sidearm is usually just the last resort to somehow win the fight anyway. And at that moment, the enemy has already seen you and is probably already shooting at you, right? You're in that dance as it goes in these games. That's why I'd say you can definitely use the laser light combo. I'm currently still using the green laser because it just gives me more hipfire accuracy than the first version of the laser light combo. Here we have the mentioned fast reload. It can lower the whole reload time by another 300 milliseconds. Definitely useful. Optic of your choice, whatever you like. If you absolutely want to play a 5x scope on a revolver, don't let me stop you. I think it's nonsense, but that's just my opinion. Pick whatever. I mostly fired from the hip and it works really well with this setup. For ammo, I'd actually just leave it with the standard ammo. You can take the penetration one because it's also 5 points in this case. So let's look at the pistols briefly. There's something special here. Let's look at the M45. We can put a lighter barrel on here. It gives a bit more mobility, makes sense. Maybe a suppressor at some point. I've already unlocked one here, some blueprint with a suppressor already on it. I've played with that in the footage for this pistol. It was okay. It was cool. In most cases, I still go for hipfire. Yeah, the M44 has a special thing. It has an extended barrel for higher muzzle velocity. Yeah, I'd almost see that as a kind of primary weapon. Other than that, it doesn't have much, honestly. Just different barrels here. Can get better hipfire again. Makes sense. Like I said, I would tune these weapons completely for close quarters because they are meant to be that final instance to maybe still get the kill. That's my philosophy on sidearms. I think it's pretty solid. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video and it helps you a bit if you hadn't already come to the same conclusion yourself, since you're all smart gamers, right? Feel free to leave a like if you liked the video, always good for the algorithm. Leave a comment. There will definitely be more videos like that on the channel because new weapons are always coming with the seasons. You know what to do. See you in the next video. Happy gaming or whatever. Bye.